Okay, thank you for joining me for today's burst of innovation. Today is a part two of how to plan when the future is uncertain. Now, this is a topic that I think is relevant and important when we're working at a normal pace, but as I was talking to a girlfriend of mine the other day, it feels like time has collapsed. So time has collapsed, things are moving faster, and I think we're all kind of living under this reality that the future is a little bit uncertain, or maybe a lot uncertain, depending on the industry you're in. And we've got to think about how do we not just plan for the future, but how do we innovate as well? How do we create the future that we need to have happen? Now, in Mondays, and I would encourage you to go back and go to my website, go to launchstreet.com, link is in the chat bar, and look at Monday's 10-minute burst, because in there I talk about creating these shorter innovation cycles that allow you to plan for the future, but focus on next steps. I also talk about why those cycles work, not just for you, but for your team as well, in keeping you focused, keeping you on point, keeping you innovative, and helping you actually craft the future that you need for your work, your leadership, and your business. So go check those Mondays out if you haven't. I think it's already up on our website. So today I want to take it from a little bit of a different angle. What I want to talk about when how to plan the future, how to plan when the future is so uncertain, is how to ask deeper questions and create meaningful milestones. So what do I mean by that? Well, our answers are only as good as our questions. So our solutions, our plans are only as good as the questions that we ask going into it. And the milestones that we create in our plans can sabotage our efforts, can hinder innovation, or we can use them to really understand our experiments, understand what's happening, understand our actions, and move forward with what's working and get rid of what's not. So I'm going to share a story with you, and then I want to share a slide with you that's really kind of the 4 reasons why this is so important to ask deeper questions. In the Everyday Innovators tribe, which I know some of you here are on, we actually went through a template that I built to help you ask questions in different ways, how to go deeper on those questions. So that's over in the tribe, but what I want to do today is kind of get to that high level and give you something to think about and a little way to adjust maybe your actions and go deeper on the questions. So let me share this story with you. So a little while back, I was working in innovation consulting, and that meant that I was responsible for new product development and bringing products to market for large consumer packaged goods companies. So Clorox, General Mills, Procter & Gamble, Johnsonville Sausage. If you've walked your cart down an aisle in Target or a grocery store, you've probably seen some of the products that I've had a hand in bringing to the market in some way or another. So I'm working for a company that has some dairy alternative products. And this is a multi-billion-dollar company, so this is not a startup. But they created a joint venture with a European company that had this apple juice in a bottle. Okay, fine. But here was the difference with this apple juice. It had bits of apple in it. So when you did this motion to drink it, bits of apple came out too. Now here's the thing. In Europe, that behavior is totally normal. It is part of their culture. In the US, where they're trying to bring this product, I think it's fair to say it's not. That's not something we're used to. We're not used to eating our juice, right? So they do this joint venture. They bring me and my team in to help them innovate, do some customer research, and bring this to market. So we go into this, and the question that we are asking ourselves, the question that we are trying to solve for, is how do we get new users? We believe that if we get new users, we can launch the product, right? Trial, right? We have trial and retention. That's kind of what we call it in the consumer goods world, the food world. It might be the same or different language in your world. But that's what we're trying to solve for. How do we get trial? How do we get trial? So we do the research, we do a marketing plan, and we get it out there, and we get incredible trial. Right? We succeed in this area. But we got the lowest retention I've ever seen on a product I've worked on. So while we had great people trying it once, kiosks at grocery stores, marketing promotions, fill in the blank, right? We weren't getting anyone to repeat. Now, as I'm telling this story, it's probably obvious to you why, right? We're not used to drinking or eating our juice, right? This kind of apple juice with bits in it. But I would submit this to you. The challenge that we actually faced wasn't that the product was unique or different. Unique and different products show up on the marketplace all the time and win and succeed. I mean, do you remember when Altoids came on the market, this whole Curiously Strong breath mint? That was ridiculous and different, right? It's wildly successful. Tough Mudder, the extreme sports, when that came on the market, people were like, that's totally crazy. We don't have these team sport driven events. Now it's a whole multi-billion dollar industry. So that wasn't actually the problem. And I'm sure you see it. The challenge was we weren't asking the right questions. We had settled on the obvious questions that we'd been asking for years on end in consumer packaged goods. How do I create trial? If I create trial, people will try the product and then they'll want it. We were not asking the right question. The question we should have been asking was, how do we get people to engage in a new behavior? How do we get people to expand their idea of drinking apple juice? So here's the thing. Because our question that we were asking and trying to answer was, how do we get trial? We came up with the solutions that tried to drive trial. And we did, but it didn't do anything, right? Our solutions were only as good as our questions, and that solution fell short. It didn't matter in the long run of the business. We needed to dig deeper and figure out the questions to ask that were really going to drive the success. How many times have we asked questions because they're the ones we always ask in our industry, or because they're the questions that seem obvious to get to the next step? I would suggest that we need to think differently about the questions that we ask, spend more time digging into those questions than getting to the solutions and the answers. Why do I have this question? Why do I have this challenge? What caused this challenge? What caused that cause of the challenge? What are alternative views of this challenge? What happens if I don't solve this challenge? What else does this challenge impact? You get the point. We got to spend more time on our questions. Had we stopped and assessed our question, we would have gotten to a whole different path, which could have led to success. Now, here's the second part of this where we fell short, and that's on the milestone side. And I want to mention that because they kind of go hand in hand, right? Because you have a question, then you get to your solutions, and then you decide, was that successful or not? The team, and I'm guilty of this, I was part of it, we put the milestones on this brand new, completely different behavior product. We put the milestones of the base brands, meaning the brands and the businesses that were already successful, onto this one. Totally unachievable. This product could not have made those milestones. It took years for the first products to do it, but we looked at those and said, well, if those did that, we should apply it to this, without thinking about, well, hold on, this is a new product, it's a different behavior, we got to think about this differently. Again, not asking the right questions. So what I'd like you to think about is, how do you spend more time deep in the questions and the milestones and less time in the solutions? And by less, I mean, don't rush to it. We rush so hard to solution, but our solutions are only as good as our questions. Take a step back. What are the questions? Where can you dig deep to make sure that you're asking the right questions? As I share in my epic failure story, the reason that wasn't successful wasn't because the product was new and unique and had a different behavior to it. The reason it wasn't successful is because we didn't spend enough time making sure that we were asking the right questions and looking at the right milestones. Before I show you my slide, I want to give you one more example. I'm just looking at the time. One more example in terms of milestones. And I've shared this in my Everyday Innovators tribe too. I have a podcast, and one of the things I was looking at in my podcast was the numbers. How many downloads, how many downloads, how many downloads? That wasn't the right milestone, because the number of people actually isn't what matters to me. What matters to me, what really moves my business forward and make sure that I'm engaging and providing value, is how many people took action on the things in our podcast, right? We have call to actions in all of them. That's what I should have been paying attention to, sorry. And because I wasn't asking the questions, I ended up on this path of trying to grow the podcast when that wasn't what I needed to be doing. What I needed to be doing was thinking about how to continue to make those connections. So let me show you a slide, and this is really important for all you leaders, because I think it'll help you wrap your head around why it's important to spend more time asking questions, and it'll give you a little bit of fodder to go to your team and say, hey, before we drive to solution, I know that's kind of our MO and it feels intuitive to do that. We're actually going to stop and think about why we're asking this question. Why are we trying to solve this? Why are we looking at this challenge? So let me share my screen. Okay, here we go. Okay, hopefully you can see this slide. If you can't in a second, please let me know. I think you can. Okay, so here's why we want to stop and kind of challenge ourselves in our questions. The first one is, well, let me put the chat bar up because I see some of you chatting and I can't see it. Sorry. Okay, by all means, add your thoughts here. Okay, so the first one is, the reason it's so important to stop and spend more time digging into the questions is we tend to go with the superficial question out of the gate versus the deep question. The superficial question gets us superficial solutions. If you really want to get over that challenge that keeps coming back, that brick wall that keeps showing up and getting bigger, the reason is the questions, the challenge we're trying to solve is actually the Band-Aid, right? It's the superficial one. You got to go deeper. The deep questions get the deep solutions, the innovative solutions that actually move it forward. The second one is we're asking the wrong question versus the right question. And what I mean by that is implied in my story. When we're asking the wrong question, it takes us down the wrong path of solutions. In the tribe, I shared about my podcast and asking the wrong question, which is, how do I grow my podcast? Well, that led me down a bunch of promotional solutions, which were great, but it didn't work because I was asking the wrong question. The challenge and the question I needed to solve was, how do I add more value and connect more with the audience that I have? And funny enough, once I changed my question, the numbers went up because it became more relevant. You see kind of the difference there? Okay, the third one is same versus different. When we ask the same questions over and over again, we get the same answers over and over again. It takes us down one path. We got to start asking different questions so that we can get to different paths. You know, we always talk about wanting to be innovative, and we tell our team, like, I need you to think differently, but we always start with the same question. It's like picking a hike, picking the same starting point and expecting to go up a different mountain. It's not going to work that way. We got to ask different questions to get to different outcomes. One of the things that we talk about in the tribe as well, and I've actually done a 10-minute burst prior about, is change the words in the question to get to new solutions. It's such a simple yet brilliant way to do it. In fact, it's in the 7 simple steps to instantly get unstuck download that's on our website right now on GoToLaunchStreet. So go check it out because it is the simplest and most brilliant. We're going to dig into that in the tribe for those of you on here who are there. Okay, the last one here is sometimes our questions are predetermined versus exploratory, meaning they're more like sending us down a path because we think we already know the solution versus questions that allow us to explore. Okay, this slide for me is all about not just understanding why spending more time in the questions matters, but this is for you as a leader to go to your team and say, hey, we're going to spend more time in the questions. We got to make sure that we're asking the right one. And as I told the tribe in our Innovation Jam session on last Friday, time has collapsed for all of us, including me. I think it was last Friday, the 29th. You know, one of the things that we talked about is in doing that exercise we did that forces us to really dig deep into why we're at solving this challenge, why we're asking this question, is either it's going to show you the deeper, right, different exploratory question that you're trying to get to, or it's going to give you even more clarity on the challenge you're trying to ask. Maybe you do have the right one. Maybe you have the one that you need to solve, but you actually need clarity around it. Oh my goodness, that was loud. Sorry. You actually need clarity around it. So either you're going to go deep and find that new challenge that really is the one you should be solving, or you're going to get more clarity around what you're trying to solve because you're going to have a deeper, richer understanding of it. Both are equally important, but we jump so heavily and so fast to solution, and then we get frustrated because those solutions don't work. Well, I suggest that's because we don't spend enough time digging into the question and spending our time steeped in inquiry versus solution. And if you want to think about planning for an uncertain future, we got to make sure that we are not spinning our wheels answering the wrong questions. I think that's part of the reason why we start to feel like time just passes by without any momentum. It's why your team feels like that. It's because while you're solving the challenge or answering the question, it was the wrong starting point to begin with. So before you pull into that parking lot of trails that go up the mountain, let's make sure that we're actually going to the right mountain. Okay, if you want a screenshot of that slide, let me know and I'll put it back up. Let me know how that was for you. We are, oh, I'm so over time today. I'm sorry. Wow. My bad today. I just got so excited and so into this one because I think questions are so powerful. So thank you all. I'm guessing you got a screenshot of that slide because I don't see anything in the chat bar. So thank you. I will see you on Monday for the next burst of innovation. I'm so honored that so many of you spend the entire time with me on these calls, and I hope they're really valuable to you. So thank you. Now this awkward moment where I get to figure out where my off button is.